welcome back. I guess this is where we can address the camera, right? Like, oh,
Yeah, we can address the camera. This is podcast number 3.
yep,
Behind the scenes, we're talking about the podcast name. For now, we're going to call it A Moment in Time Podcast. So welcome to the A Moment in Time Podcast, where we reflect on the past, we talk about the present, and we talk about maybe what we plan to do in the future.
yep. Haven't checked out if it's taken or not, so might change. You know, it's a fluid situation there, but yeah, third podcast, bro.
Yeah, what makes you want to continue to do the podcast? Like, what do you get from it?
I think it's almost I enjoy doing it first of all because it's like dope to even sit down. It's only an hour, you know, a week. Well, actually, now it's been a full week that we didn't do it, you know. So
Right.
I think the biggest thing for me is I enjoy doing it, and also it helps me feel like you remember that conversation I was having with John in the chat where I was like, "Yo, getting a win." I feel like this is part of getting a win, and I just feel like we're at least making an effort to stay consistent. And it's like, yo, we started. Why not keep going? Like, why just do 2 podcasts? I had fun on the 2 and just stop, you know?
Yeah, and I think that, for example, like a lot of people when they do their New Year's resolutions, they have to publicly announce what they're doing because it's a form of accountability.
Yep.
And so this might be a form of accountability where you're saying, like, hey, this is what's going on in my life right now, and this is what goal I have. And so it might be a way to hold yourself accountable. And so, yeah, I mean, I like it because, you know, you get to have some meaningful conversations. A lot of the time when you go to social outings, it's just a bunch of small talk. Oh, hey, how's work going?
Yep.
Oh, how's the family? Da 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 da. And I'm like, I enjoy having a meaningful conversation with
Yeah.
you and with other people. We had John on the last podcast, and we're hoping to get more guests.
And I think
come.
also part of to go into that question, part of it is what we were talking about before, where we're coming up with a moment in time because right now we're having life changes that you know it's cool to have it have like a record of it and be able to look back in a few years and be like, oh dang, like I remember when I was going through that transition and that was my thought process at that time, and this is where I'm at now, which hopefully, you know, positively looking back on it and being like, oh, you know, it's always cool when you can look back. I hear it all the time where they're like, oh, I look back at videos of myself and I'm so dumb, or like I was so dumb, this and that. And it's like, oh, well, that's kind of a sign of growth because at the time, you just got to stay true to yourself in this moment. Like you're always going to be an evolving person. So
Totally agree. Yeah. I look at videos of myself and sometimes I cringe,
yeah, 100%.
but I think it was just a different maturity level. But yeah, so anyways, so we don't have a lot of viewers right now, but that's okay, right? You know, when we share it on social media, there are some people that don't know who you are. When you share it on your social media, people don't know who I am. So I want to start off by just introducing. I want you to introduce like yourself and like who you are, like what you do, what kind of interests you have, what you know, where did you grow up, just kind of like let people get to know you because the truth of the matter is maybe you have people on here that you've known for a long time, but you haven't necessarily been connected to them
Yeah,
within the last 10 years. So
true. Yeah, I mean, I could get into it. Hey, I feel like this is going back to my interview, trying to describe myself and being like, damn, who am I? You know, it's like low-key a deep question.
it's like an interview question that I got is like, describe yourself in 3 words.
Oh, I got that too, actually. I was like, dang. But I wasn't ready for it at the time. That was when I was on the way back on the phone. So I'm like trying to think of it. I'm like, damn, what do I say? But no, I feel like, well, yeah, it's funny. Everybody knows me as Ricky. My name is Enrique. And I was born in New York, lived here my whole life, though, in Omaha. So I'm like I remember when I was younger, I would always say, I'm like, oh, I'm from New York. But as I got older, I'm like, I'm not really from New York. I was born in New York, but I'm definitely from
So
Omaha.
why did you move here?
My family
places.
moved here. So my parents lived in New York. They worked with the horse racing, like in the horse racing industry, taking care of, what are they, thoroughbred horses. And bro, New York is just expensive as heck. Like you look at the house that they were living in. It wasn't only, you got to think my mom's has what, 4 siblings? Yeah, 4 siblings. My grandparents, and then obviously my dad was there. And it was like not only them, but then my grandpa's siblings. And I mean, I don't really know the whole layout because obviously I wasn't born, and then we moved here when I was a month old. But you know, something like that.
But you had family
And
members here,
no,
or
not in
no?
Nebraska.
Oh,
Well,
okay.
there were people from our rancho that were here, I guess, and then he's my godfather, but he's my uncle, my mom's brother. The one my mom's the oldest, her next oldest brother. He came out to Nebraska because they had heard that there was like a lot of opportunity, cheap housing, stuff like that, you know. And he came out here, found all these meat packing plants and stuff like that, and was like, "Yo, like houses out here are I don't know how much they were at the time, but you know, probably like 50,000, whatever, 70,000 compared to New York." So he ringed back and is like, "Yo, this is the
Hey,
move."
they were
Like,
they were the Mexican Lewis and Clark.
yeah, for real. They're like, "Yo, this is the move." Like, hey, there's gold
Hey,
out there.
the land the land of opportunity.
Yeah, the land of opportunity. So they came out here, and I almost there were multiple possibilities for me. My dad wanted to go back to Mexico. All his siblings are in Cali, so he was thinking about moving to Cali, or I think those were the two options actually. But then my uncle came out here, and he was like, "Ah, well, you know what? Like, we'll go check it out, and then make a decision from there." You know,
Hmm.
and what are we now? 28 years later, we're still here. Like my dad just ended up sticking here, you know?
Yeah, I mean it's a good place to grow up. My mom and my dad, they brought me here because 1993 the LA gang riots were happening.
Oh, dang.
You know, it was, you know, like just LA in general, like the culture was like, you know, Tupac inspired, and
Yeah.
Crips and Bloods, and then you got, you know, the Mexican gangs and stuff like that. So they were like, yeah, I don't want you to grow up in this environment.
Yeah.
And I mean, you still, I mean, the culture still lives on today. I mean, like the Pachuco style, or
Yeah.
like the cholo, like just the stereotypical cholo. If you would have grown up in the '90s, you probably would have kind of followed that track. But then, so they moved to Nebraska. Same thing though, like meat packing plants. Like I got family members who
Were
work
you
there.
born? You were born in
I
LA
was
then?
born in LA, and then
Oh,
we moved
dang.
here when I was 4.
I actually didn't realize that.
They're Yeah, so they're just like, yeah, no, we want to take them out of this environment. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's cool. So so I mean, you grew up in Omaha. Like, what was it like? Do you have any like fond memories of your childhood, or
Oh, 100%, bro.
like anything that you want to share? Like some
Yeah.
cool experiences that you've had
Yeah,
growing
I
up?
feel like well, the reason my Spanish is so good in Spanish, I was gonna say my Spanish is so good in Spanish.
Yeah.
My Spanish is so good because I grew up in it's almost cool to look at the evolution of my family, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like all the families that moved here at that time, because at the time it was very similar to how they were living in New York. Like we came out here, my grandpa bought like a huge house. Well, they were in one house first, and then we moved to South O. That's where I start remembering, in South O, like on 23rd and E. And he bought this big house, and like we all stayed there. Some cousins stayed there. Like, you know, it was just everybody in there. And so I'm around like all this Spanish speaking, you know. So I feel like I kind of learned Spanish and English equally. And my dad will even say it. He'll be like, he told me before, he's like, I don't understand how you were born in the US, but if I hear you speak Spanish, like, well, I guess I do code switch in time, you know, because obviously I know that like the Michoacan accent. He's like, when you talk to us, you can tell that you're from Michoacan, you know. And then I guess when I worked at Apple and at Gallup, like I kind of
Yeah.
code switch a little bit.
Well, we code switch in English as
Yeah,
well.
100%. So I had that experience. That's dope to have grown up. It's fun. There's funny stories. Like I was mute for I don't remember how long, like till I was 2 or 3 or something like that. Like, yeah, I might be a little autistic potentially. I don't know, but
On the spectrum.
but I feel like we're all on the spectrum, low key. But yeah. So I didn't speak, but I would still communicate through gestures and through like And I guess since the whole family lived there, they'd go out to get food or whatever, and then come home and they'd eat. And like I was a fat little kid because I'd be like this little kid toddler walking around, and my parents would feed me, and then someone would come home. I'd see they had food. But I'm right there, like, hey, let me get a fry, bro. Like I'm just getting fed, and my mom had to tell everyone, like, yo, stop feeding Ricky. This dude is like on the verge of puking right now. He's like, I'm just walking around with the big old gut.
Yeah.
But and yeah, dude, I feel like my parents worked a lot, which as I've grown older, like I see the double-edged sword with that, and like how you learn from it in positive and negative ways. Because my parents worked a lot, so I spent most of my time with like my grandparents and stuff like that, which I'm super thankful for them like working so much and stuff. Like they were able to provide us this amazing life, and kind of like I said, like the family has progressed. We were all in this house. Now everybody has their own houses with their own family. Like everybody's doing financially better than when we first got here, which is awesome. And and yeah, like it was cool that my parents did that, but then there were also like missed opportunities there to like spend time with them, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But it was cool because they still like made sure like we still got pictures of going to the fair, like the September Fest and stuff. I'm riding a pony with my aunt and stuff like that. So we definitely kicked it a lot, but that leads to like some of the fond memories that I have is going to Burger King on 24th Street, bro. Because I'd be with my grandparents every like Saturday morning.
Oh yeah.
So my grandpa would get up at like 6 a.m., bro. And this dude just causing a commotion. Like we're all trying to sleep. It's the weekend. This dude's like up, like throwing up in the freaking sink, brushing his teeth, like those memes. And yeah, he'd wake us up like 8 a.m. or something, if not earlier. And y'all get ready. We hitting up this Burger King breakfast, bro. And it was so fire.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say like when you're talking about, especially with Mexican families. I'm sure it happens with all families, but specifically like Mexicans are just workaholics. It's
Oh
just in
yeah,
their blood to work, and I think there's, like you said, it's a double-edged sword. At least for me, it kind of seems like you you really um, you acquire their work ethic because of what you see, and they set the standard so high
oh yeah,
when it comes to work ethic that you're like you're just naturally it's in your blood to work just as
yep,
hard or if not harder, and so working hard isn't anything that you're scared of. Like
yeah,
I'm like, shoot, I've been seeing this all my life, and then you also can't complain too much when it comes to working because you're like, bruh, like I got
yeah,
it made.
yep.
Working inside, like you just have a different perspective. But at the end of the day, them working so much, like you said, definitely have experience where, man, I wish my mom had gone to a soccer game, or I wish my mom were more involved
Yeah. And
in guiding me. But yeah.
you know what's also funny? Because like I feel like we always, as humans are always gonna long for whatever they didn't have. So like whatever it is, like it's never gonna be enough, I guess. Because when I think of that, like I'm like, damn, yeah, my parents didn't come to a lot of concerts. But then when I really think back on it, I'm like, nah, they did come to like my middle school concert, my middle school plays.
Hmm.
And then I remember my dad was like talking about the music we were playing. Like it's band. He's expecting like Mexican banda music. I'm like, no, bro, we're playing some like classical composer type stuff, you
Yeah.
know?
Oh yeah.
And then when I think back on me being little, like when they'd make us do those shows of singing, my mom's like, I would come to your shows and you over there just hiding in the back, not trying to sing. And I'm like, you right.
Yeah. 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 And then I guess if you want to look at the opposite side, it's like, well, would you rather your parents have been lazy and they would have been there all the time, like not
Yeah.
have a job, like they work part time, they do the bare minimum,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
then you just have like a mediocre life, like you don't get the things that you want because they're not hardworking. I
Yeah,
guess that could be
exactly.
the opposite. You'd be living in the projects on food stamps and just doing the bare minimum.
It's just
So
and that's also speaks to the like the example and becoming successful or whatever, which I feel like having that mold or someone that's why they say representation really is. I used to think that was kind of like oh whatever, you know, when they like oh representation is important in whatever career field or whatever, but it really is true. Like when you see someone that's like you, or when you're exposed to this hard work ethic every single day, you're
hmm.
naturally bound to be like, oh okay, well that's what I'm supposed to be doing, you know, like you're
Hmm.
setting that example. And that goes to career paths. Like, oh, you see someone that's like you doing it, or you see a friend that is being successful, and you're like, oh, cool. Like, oh, let me like now I'm seeing it on a day-to-day basis. Oh, that's kind of what he's doing. It's setting a blueprint that
Hmm.
you're not just having to guess.
I think the saddest part about having kids as a parent is when that kid makes a really bad decision and they ruin their life or they get killed. And so I've always thought like it's just so sad. And now like seeing how much effort and time and commitment it takes to raise a child,
Yeah.
I'm like, dang. like you put 15 to 20 years of effort into doing your best to raise a child to be productive and to have some sort of purpose in life, for them to just go and join a gang or just be influenced by the wrong people and just kind of ruin their life. So I had the opposite mentality where I was like, I recognize how hard my parents have worked or my mom has worked to get me to where I am now, and for her, for her to have provided for me for all those years, that I want to make sure that her work doesn't go in vain. Que
Yeah.
no fue una pérdida de tiempo.
Yeah.
Like that it wasn't just a waste of her time, and that I don't want her to ever like say like, damn, I put all this effort into this and así nomás me salió el chamaco. Like
Yeah.
at least she can be proud and be like, dang, all that work that I put in to raise my kids, it was worth it, because look at how successful they are now. So
I think another thing that, because I was always like this, you could call it like a goody two shoes kid when I was in school. Like I never wanted to get in trouble and stuff. But part of that was because my parents made me understand like the repercussions of what would happen if I got in trouble in school. Like I remember, like you said, my parents worked so hard, and they would always tell me about like, oh, like they'd give me examples. Like, for example, I remember my dad one time being like, oh, yo, like I appreciate you being like such a good kid in school and like focusing and not getting in trouble. He's like, one of my coworkers keeps having to leave all the time from work and is like, now he's struggling. Like he'd build like a picture for me on what's going on and what can happen by me making like this dumb mistake. And I was like, damn, all right. So then like I'd be in school and people would be like, oh, yo, let's skip, let's go do this. I'm like, yeah, I'm cool. I think I'm gonna just go to class,
damn, I wish I was as disciplined as you. A lot of people don't know this, but when I was 15, I got my first citation. It was for third degree assault because some kid threatened me and he had a pencil in his hand acting like he was going to stab me. So I hit him first.
Damn.
And I made his mouth bleed. And so they called the parents, asked the parents, do you want to press charges? They're like, yes. Then
Damn, that's crazy.
Then like at 6 months, then like I got put on diversion. And then at like 6 to 8 months later, I got one other citation for shoplifting. People don't know that.
Yeah.
And then I got another citation. Oh, I'm sorry. I got multiple citations. People don't even know that my house was raided at one point in my life, like by like not a SWAT team, but a gang unit, because I was being influenced to tag and I wouldn't say I was being influenced. I was just around that, and I just didn't have any guidance, and I was just being I don't know, like I was just being like I had a need for speed kind of mentality where like I wanted to do something that excited me.
Yeah.
And it was like I put my mom through all that, and she had to go to court and pay all my fees, and I'm like, dang, like that was like so unnecessary for her to have to go through that. But luckily, I kind of turned my life around. I think when I started playing sports, I started playing soccer. I kind of turned my life around and started using that energy to do something productive. So, and then it just kind of, at least for me, I've been pretty proud with the decisions that I've made since then, because probably the biggest leap was just joining the Marines. You grew up real fast, like joining the Marines and getting out of your home and leaving your hometown, and you have like really no safety net. But yeah, then I kind of got my head straight after that, and like I said, I kind of reminded myself like, yeah, your parents have worked too hard for you to just waste your life. So.
Yeah, bro.
But that's cool that like ever since I've known you, you've been very wise in your decision making.
I try to be, bro. I mean, I'm definitely not perfect. You know what I'm saying? Like, I definitely have my mistakes. Like, I ain't a perfect person.
But it comes to show how great of parents you have, because they've mentored you the right way. They've instilled values, and they've allowed you to think in a certain way, even when it comes to finances. Like I see the transfer and wisdom. I see the way that your dad operates. Like when you talk about, no, pues mi papá se compró un Subaru and he paid like so little money and it's still running good. Like they're good at making good like bargain buys.
And you know what's crazy that is like that's 100% one of the things that I've picked up from my dad and my mom, I guess, to an extent too. I feel like my dad's the one that's talked about it more, but because for example, like where we're from in Mexico, bro, it's very like like, nah, una troca nueva. Like, I mean, not even just from where I'm from. I feel like I'm sure it's like almost everywhere because it's like, you see poverty, it's a sign of status.
It's a sign
like
of status, yeah.
yeah. So it's like, yeah, you should be proud and be like, oh, like I can spend this money. But my dad has always been very different. My dad's always been like, yo, like, why am I gonna buy a brand new truck? Like, okay, and it's gonna depreciate at X amount within like the first year as soon as I drive it off the lot. And like, he's like, yeah, I could get like this older car, and not even older because now he buys older, but like I remember when he bought the Yukon, I remember when he pulled up because I've always been into cars. He pulled up, I was at my grandparents' house, and they're like, hey, Ricky, your dad's outside. Hey, your mom and dad are outside. I walk out there, bro. They got the white Yukon Denali, sunroof open, fog lights on. I'm like, what you playing right now,
They did
bro?
love that.
I'm like, you crazy. And even that, like, me as a little kid, I'm like, oh, this thing's brand new. But he's like, nah, I would never buy brand new. Like, that thing was like pre-owned, certified
Yeah.
pre-owned. And as I've gotten older, yeah, like I've definitely made my financial mistakes 100%, but like, especially now, I'm like, yeah, I'd have to be making insane amount of money to be like, oh, let me go buy this brand new vehicle just because it's a luxury. Like, I appreciate these older vehicles so much. And like my Lexus, I love that thing. That thing, I bought it for 12.5. It's been running. I've put like over 60,000 miles on it, no problems. Like, dude, that's the type of stuff that has definitely passed on to me where I'm like, yeah, I don't really, yeah, that car might be cooler, it might be newer, but to me, bro, this GX is beautiful. I love this thing, and it was cheap, and I can I'm not paying freaking $700 a month to like.
Yeah, people value different things. People value status, and I actually made a Facebook post about this. Our our need to have status is actually a natural survival mechanism.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Back in the day, we weren't self-sustainable. It wasn't possible to be independent and to, like, you couldn't go to a grocery store and buy food, and also, you know, like people used to live in a community.
Yep.
Right, and so you need to have some sort of value and have some sort of social status, or so it was a survival mechanism. And if you didn't have anything, if you didn't show that you were a value, then you wouldn't survive, essentially.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But I think nowadays it's just about, you clearly value freedom over what people think about you.
Yeah.
Right. You don't need anybody to necessarily know.
And it's cool too. Like, I feel like well, first of all, my upbringing, and then also just that like my dad always said that too. He's like, más vale el dinero en la bolsa que ni like why are you gonna be flaunting this or whatever? Try to like appear. I guess I definitely have had part of, like you said, it's still natural where you're like, oh, like I want to flex every now and then, like I like to flex, but my flexing has like changed significantly, and now it's like, yeah, there's things that like I'm what is it called? I'm very happy living as modest as I can, like I don't need to really buy something crazy. Although I do like it, like if I see someone, I'm like, ah, dang, that is sick. Like, maybe not for me right now. Maybe, like I said, if I made crazy money, 100%, I'm balling out on a little Lambo or something. But I ain't gonna say I ain't got that in me. But
and I have a little bit of a different mindset than you, where I kind of feel that when I stretch myself a little bit thin, I put more pressure on myself and I work a little bit harder.
Oh yeah, right? We did talk about that.
Because sometimes you can get complacent.
Yeah.
And this kind of we can transition into, you were a little bit complacent in your current position. You're like, I make however much I make, I'm comfortable.
Yeah.
All my bills are paid, but at the end of the day, like, for me, like, I'm just saying, like, I spread myself thin sometimes because I don't think that, like, if I bought a $50,000 truck. Yeah. That was probably a really dumb decision. But but it definitely motivated me to work harder. And like, you know what? Like, I'm going to become a captain, or honestly, I was already a captain at that point, but I was like, you know what? Like, there's more to accomplish. And this is just kind of the beginning.
Yeah.
And so there's got to be a balance between applying pressure on yourself and also being financially irresponsible.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Some people will buy things that they don't even really deserve, or they're not really in a position to afford.
Yeah.
They're just not responsible. But
Bro, and that's a battle too. Even recently, like I was looking at I guess I haven't worn as many hats and stuff, but I haven't like I don't really buy clothes that much. And like I said, like now I guess never mind. I can't really say that because these are like Beyond Yoga sweats and like. But I got I'd be looking for the deals. I'm like, oh, where can I get it as cheap as possible? But I was looking at these hats, almost, bro. And then those promos be getting you. I'm like, oh, that's a dope hat. Oh, like the 30-something bucks. I'm like, I might get that. And I look at it. I put it in the cart. And then I'm like, but if I spend 50, I get free shipping. And if otherwise I'm paying this much for shipping. So then,
Right.
bro, I loaded up my cart. It ended up being like over $100. And I was like, I really don't need this. I have a closet full of hats that I haven't even worn.
yeah.
Like, I'm like, yeah, I don't need this,
So like, at what point, like, how do you justify a purchase though? Like if you wanted to buy a Rolex, like, what kind of position do I need to be in to buy a Rolex?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. Because I guess to me,
Or like to buy a new car, like
To
to
buy
buy
a
a
new-
$50,000 truck, like what kind of position do you need to be in, right?
damn, if I was gonna buy a $50,000 truck, I'd have to. Well, that's another thing that comes down for my. Okay, so what I was gonna say, actually, circling back from my dad, yeah, modest and stuff like that. But also there is that part of like safety. Like safety was a big thing. Him creating a safety net for us in case something were to ever happen or whatever. Like we're gonna be fine. Like basically, he was creating security for the family. So I feel like that's definitely come down to me, where I'm like, I like to create security. Like I like to be secure, which is definitely where we're different. But yeah, it can be that double-edged sword where now I'm not striving for something else, which it's changing. But I feel like one of the things too is you got to be as close to being able to pay that cash or being able to pay that cash in order to make, like, for example, the truck that I bought. I was like, could I pay it cash if I wanted to? Yeah. All right, cool. Like I'll go get a loan and like, as long as it's not very high interest, like I'm gonna take that,
Yeah.
So if I were to buy a $50,000 truck, I'd probably have to have like, yeah, I mean at least like 60K saved up. Nah, probably even more, honestly. I don't even know.
I think that every person has to set their own risk parameters.
Yeah.
And there are some people who are like making $20,000 a year, and half of their check is going to their truck payment.
Yeah.
And like it just depends on what risk tolerance you have.
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe you have some rule of thumbs in your life. For example, like my rule of thumb is like don't spend more than 25% of your gross income on housing. Don't spend more than 10% of your gross income on car payments. And some people might have a lesser tolerance. Some people might be like, oh, I don't want to spend more than 20% or 15% on housing.
Yeah.
But then you're like, okay, well, this is the house that I want. And that house right there currently is 40% of my gross income. So either you settle for something that's 20% of your gross income and it's a shitty ass house,
Yeah.
or you level up and you go and earn more.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
100%.
So it's like, okay, you make, let's just say that you can only afford a $1,500 a month house, but you want a $2,500 a month house, then your only way to really afford that is to make more money. But
Yeah.
then it also comes with, now you have to work, you have to give up your time
Yeah.
to even make that money.
And it's not because what I was gonna say too is, or you wait and save up enough to be able to put a down payment where now
Right.
that monthly payment is manageable.
Yeah, you have some patience.
Yeah, but then that's where that's also a double-edged sword, because the way the housing market has been going up, it's like, okay, cool, now that house that you wanted, depending on how long it takes you to
Your
save
20%
this money.
used to be 20,000 and now it's 40,000.
Exactly. It's like, okay, bro, like, so it's just gonna keep
Yeah.
going up. So yeah, at the end of the day, like, you have to find. Well, I feel like that's where I am at in my life right now too, where it's like, because in my previous job, yeah, there was growth opportunity, but it wasn't like you could grind so hard and it's still like, oh, cool. Like there wasn't really like a super great result or outcome for you grinding like super hard or whatever,
Right.
which was part of like kind of what did build complacency in a matter where it was like, damn, like I don't really have to go crazy hard and I'm still gonna be making like, good money and I'm still gonna be surviving. But now this switch up in fields, it's like, that's what I want. I feel like that's where it's like almost a, what do you call it? It's like fake pressure, even though it is real because it's going to be directly impacting how much I'm making. It's like artificial pressure that I'm putting on myself. It's like, yeah, cool. But pay everything that I have. I don't have to have something externally weighing me down where now I'm like stressed because I'm not going to make this payment. Now I'm genuinely just my competitive drive is going to hopefully be able to show and be like, okay, cool. Like, oh, what? I'm getting another one and I'm getting another one. And it's like, I'm putting pressure on myself to, become number one. So
I think the secret I think the answer to our question is invest in yourself so that you can make more hourly, for example, right? Because you can only work so much. So you can either make $15 an hour and work 80 hours a week to afford that house that we're talking about, or you can invest in yourself and take some risks to where instead of making $15 an hour, now you're making $60 an hour.
Yeah.
Right now you're making 4 times. You're working the same amount of hours. You're making 4 times more, and now you can afford the things that you want or that you know.
And you know what's crazy too, where people talk about investing your money and stuff like that, which I think I agree with it when you're at a certain scale of financial, like wherever you are, if you're very high in the financial ladder, like you can take those risks of investing a lot of money into the stock market or buying a business or something like that. But I feel like at a certain level, it's a little hard to know what to do with that money. And it's like, oh, okay, I could put it in the stock, but then, oh, cool, now the stock market went down. And now I'm like, which I guess it's always like a wave. You can ride it out as long as you're able to. And I guess that's also why they say invest the money that is like, you can consider it lost basically. But that's the thing. It's not so easy to just be like, oh, I'm gonna invest my money. It's like, nah, there's risk involved, It's not an easy like, yeah, unless you get a high yield savings account. But if you're truly like, oh, I'm gonna invest in this business and now the business crashes, there's no guarantees.
I think the best investment one can make is in themselves.
Yeah.
As cliche as that sounds, especially when you're young, you have the ability to take risks. Even when you're in your 30s, you can still pursue second careers. There are people in their 40s and 50s who are pursuing, fourth careers. Like they've had multiple careers in their life. But
I think change is a good thing. I think change, because eventually maybe your career that you're at right now, I mean, tech, there's so much AI happening, like that landscape is going to change a ton, So it's like, I feel like as you evolve as a human, your interests change, and you can always, as long as you're passionate about something, you can always make a career change. You just, because you'll pick it up if you're passionate about it.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think this is going to be the end of part 1. We're actually going to do multiple podcasts. I think we can probably just end this episode right here where we talk about just kind of life and kind of mindset.
Yeah.
And if you want, we can go to part 2. And if you're interested in listening to part 2, we're honestly just winging it.
Yeah. That was not even what we had planned.
Yeah,
we just started.
We're going to do part 2 because we have a couple of other topics that we really want to talk about. And this one was mostly mindset, kind of getting to know you, kind of just, just talking about our own personal lives. But part 2 is the second video on our channel. So be sure to check us out. Let us know what you think about the conversation. And we look forward to hearing from you.
Like, comment, subscribe. Peace. Boom. Yeah, we just kind of started flowing at that point.